Battletech versus Star Wars? That is the question in this vlog, specifically heavy mechs versus an AT-AT. Who is going to come out ahead? So we're doing this X-Wing miniature thing. We're doing this Battletech thing. You put together a bunch of Wargamers that have some crossover, and naturally questions like this will arrive. And I do have a good friend of mine who is currently converting over some stats to Battletech for an AT-AT and some ATSTs. And we might do a little bit of a kind of an expo demo type match and see how it plays out. But this led to an interesting question. If we're talking about an AT-AT, what do you think that would be in terms of tonnage? And we're not doing one-to-one and just say call it a Goliath. We're not getting off that easy. We're trying to map the tech level from Star Wars to Battletech. I think it would be a heavy mech. That's where we were going in as. Now, you've also got the variants that are kind of not the armored ground assault, but more the transport version, kind of like we saw in Rogue One. I might put that at a medium type mech. Certainly, we've got the ATST and the Scout versions. We could put that down as a light mech. Maybe even potentially the Clone War Scouts. That's kind of battle armor. Kind of like battle armor. And maybe if we jump into the New Order, we're looking at stuff like the Goliath. That could be kind of an assault mech. But we're looking heavy versus AT-AT. So the first question there, of course, is what kind of weapons does an AT-AT have? Based on how they shoot and what they do, it's not really. What's interesting is my understanding of the Battletech laser is very much how kind of a laser physically works. It's superheating, it's charging, it's firing out that beam, and that beam is consistent for a period of time. Now, this is where the narrative is kind of open. The damage the beam does is that based on the power of the beam or how long it can hit contact, we see some of these lasers shooting out very quick, direct flashpoints, kind of vaporizing armor. But then you see in the narrative and you see in some of the games almost where the laser is sweeping across, literally cutting, almost like a lightsaber, right? Cutting across the armor. So from that perspective, the main blasters on an AT-AT are not doing that. They almost kind of want to work like slower pulse lasers. I didn't want to pull in clan tech, but if we look at the clans, the way those pulse lasers work in the various video games and digital medium, they're pretty fast. They shoot out pretty fast. The pulses are pretty fast and consistent. I see the AT-AT blasts a little bit slower. So the first question is, what do we map those as? If we're doing inner sphere tech, I would say they're definitely not PPCs, but they would be heavy lasers. Absolutely, large lasers, pushing that out, large lasers simply on the main armament. They might have some medium lasers or some small lasers for anti-personnel. But the bigger question, of course, then, once we move past weapons, is, and we're going to put aside the fact that, yes, I think they hold a couple of speeders. Yes, you've got infantry. It's almost like the Goblin, where it's a fighting vehicle. You could dismount the infantry. We're going to push that aside and just go head-to-head in the moment. I would say the AT-AT is mostly armor. I think if I was to design that, I'd go in on the maximum tonnage for a heavy mech, put on 2 large lasers, put on, 2 to 4 medium lasers or 2 mediums and maybe 2 smalls, and then the rest is just pure armor. I'm going to downgrade that engine. Probably the smallest and lowest rating I can get, just to save space and tonnage, and again, just beef up on armor. So I could see an AT-AT out-armoring any heavy mech in Battletech. I mean, it would make the something like the T-Bolt look like it has nothing. But then once we get into maneuverability, they're not that maneuverable. They really aren't. And on top of that, the weapons profile is forward-facing. I mean, most of the guns in Battletech, yes, are forward-facing, but the firing arcs in Battletech with the torso twist means that AT-AT is going to be in a lot of trouble. So as a direct assault, as they were designed to do, point the guns at the target. The target is the rebel base. The target is the destination we're going at. Slowly walk at it as you blast away. And then once you're there, let the speeders out and the ground troops out and ground assault. I mean, that type of tech absolutely works. So I think if it was going up against a heavy mech, let's pull in like a Warhammer. I think the Warhammer has a significant advantage. Pull in an Orion, pull in an Archer, pull in any mech. I think there is a significant advantage because the mech is a battle machine designed to fight in a variety of scenarios and a variety of different hex maps. The AT-AT is ground assault. That heavy mech is going to make it to the side. It's going to stay out of the primary firing arc. It's going to blast away. It could take a couple of hits from an AT-AT. It's going to get to that side armor. It's going to get to that rear armor, and it's just going to absolutely chew it apart. Now, if we layer over that, and look, if you've been following my Battletech vlogs, it's about the infantry. It's about the tanks. I can see utilizing infantry for defense. I could see as that Warhammer approaches and is now moving to the side, the AT-AT ground assault. Deploy the troops, get those out there. So I could see it working with a ring of infantry. But with that infantry pouring out, it could put the hurt on a heavy mech. It's not going to stop it, in my opinion. And that AT-AT is still going to get destroyed. So for some reason with Battletech, I think the tech on a higher point of view, if we're looking at Star Wars versus Battletech, on average, there's more guns on Battletech stuff. A lot more firepower is brought to bear. If you look at something like a heavy or an assault mech, there is a tremendous amount of firepower that this machine is bringing. Empire tech, Star Wars tech, it's got some guns, it's got some turrets, but it's kind of locked into that World War II-esque type level, that kind of approach. Now, where we get into some real interesting games and outside of the scope versus AT-AT versus heavy mech would be just the raw ability for the Empire. Of course, it depends on what time period. AT-AT, we're looking at Empire. The ability for the Empire to manufacture stuff for the entire galaxy and oppress the entire galaxy. Or one could say liberate and bring law and order to the entire galaxy. To bring that to bear against the Inner Sphere, I think it would crush the Inner Sphere. It would do what the clans could not necessarily because of a higher tech level. Clans had higher tech level. You could say they had superior mech warriors, but the raw amount of ships and material and troops and logistics and everything that the Empire would bring, even if the Inner Sphere was able to unify, I don't think they could. Even with potentially superior tech in terms of guns, I don't think they could. Tech level, tech level, I'd say they're about the same. And this is where we'll leave it off in the comments. AT-AT versus heavy mech. You pick the heavy mech. Who would win? I would say the tech levels are about the same between the two. Manufacturing capability, vastly different. You've got some Star Wars tech that's very high tech. You've got some Star Wars tech that's low tech. And you've got some stuff that kind of maps one-to-one. If we look at the Jedi starfighters, you've got that mind link thing where the Jedi are like feeling the ship and utilizing their Jedi powers and stuff. So they kind of have neural helmets. I don't know. I got to check the tech manual. I don't know if they have that on the AT-ATs and other things. I don't believe so. I believe it's completely mechanical and they're operating it. But there is some interesting one-to-one tech that maps in both universes. So that's why I'm saying I would say the tech levels are about the same. But how would it play out? What do you think? And this is interesting when you get a bunch of wargamers together, especially if they're passionate about different systems and different crossover. Winning games is important, and winning games is great. But I often say the thing that is more potent as a wargamer than winning games is arguing about games, is defending games, is throwing one narrative, one lore at the other, and asking that question, this versus that, who would win?